Hey everybody, this is Dark Guardsman. We're back with another status update on ICBM Classic. So the first alpha release was just pushed out here the last couple days. So there is a version up on Curse. You guys can download it. I do recommend not using it in your actual worlds or putting it in a mod pack just yet. There's still a little bit of testing that needs to be done, and when I mean a little bit, we're probably going to have to spend the rest of the week testing to make sure it stabilizes. Right now, I know for sure that most of the content does work in single player. I have not tested anything server side beyond launching the server to fix a few launch issues. So if you end up putting this on a test server and it ends up crashing on you and breaking, you were warned. Like, it's not exactly stable. Wait for a beta release before trying to do anything, because once it's beta released, I've pretty much said that it's stable enough that it should work. As for what's been updated since the last video, it's pretty obvious. We've got the launcher done. It's completely done. So the screen does work. I have confirmed that most of this works in here. I haven't tested every setting. I know that you can do X and Z. I think detonation height works. I think lock height works, and of course frequency does work. Of course, all the frames work. We have all three tiers of that. I do not have item textures for everything, so there's been a few people that have reported this. I know the textures are not done. Like, you can probably just go through it and figure out, like, things like the S-mine are not there. A lot of the missile renders are not exactly crisp. I have to go through and manually tune all the tier 2 and tier 3 actual renders. So when you go through here, I'm surprised people didn't notice that, like, oh yeah, these aren't really working, and then went down here like, oh yeah, you have missing textures, you probably should fix that. It's like, yes, I know I should fix this. Right now, the EMP tower and the radar towers item models do work properly, so we can go into third person and switch hands, and it renders pretty well. It'll switch hands in both of this, and of course its placed version works. Same with the radar station, it works as well. These can be powered, these do work. I haven't tested the power draining code on all tiles just yet. I do know that the missile knockout version does actually work. That was tested. I know this works as well, so this one will actually output power or output redstone if a missile gets nearby it, so it will actually trigger the EMP tower to go off. There is no alarm audio for this. I noticed that was a missing feature. I've been literally bouncing back to the 1.5.2 version and testing it repeatedly, so I literally opened the Technic client, open the old Volts, and actually test everything now. So those have versions. I just did the launcher item here, and of course it does work, so you can place this as well. And of course all the other tiers actually are placeable as well. So if we do the tier 2 and tier 3, these are actual placeable. They actually do the rotations properly. There, however, are no multi-block collision boxes yet. I have to update the Voltage multi-block system. It does function as far as I can tell. So once I just update the block and register it, the multi-block structure should go back to working as intended. There probably is a few minor things I'm going to have to update and adjust with those, including things like rendering and everything else. All the frames work, although all the frames models are the same. I actually was thinking about this last night, that I may go through and either redo the textures on these, and that's probably the most likely one that's going to happen sooner than later. But I am thinking about taking these launcher frames and matching them to the base itself. So for example, take this one, which is a tier 1. See the side frame pieces on here? I think I might just take one of those and put it on the back. It won't be too hard. Whoever did the Technic models actually separated out the frame pieces, and it makes me wonder if that was the intended purpose originally to do with these, is to actually use it, because there's a separated piece for this one and there's a separated piece for this one as well. So theoretically what I can do is I can take these and do them, and of course I still have to fix the renders. Like, these have actually been bugged out since I think they've been put into the mod. But what we're going to do is probably take a top panel like that and stick right on top there and fix it up. And I think I might rotate these. So the original model for the tier 2 launcher, I actually dug it out of the bin folder that CalCloud gave me a couple years ago. These were not rotated, so I have no clue why these actually have been rotated. It does look aesthetically slightly better, but you can tell clearly that these were meant to go around the missile, so we may end up rotating those back around. What else we got? Launcher screens. All the launcher screens work, and of course I still have to go through and update these as well. So right now, all the stuff in front of you are Technic models that have been exported as Java class code. It's not the recommended way to do it anymore, so I actually need to come through here and redo these all as object models, which is good because I can actually do all of the launcher stuff with an object model without a problem. Stuff that's actually going to be difficult to do with object models is these two guys, because as far as I can tell, I haven't figured out a reliable way to take an object model and rotate pieces with it. And I'm not saying like I don't know how to actually rotate it. So say for example, you make a resource pack and you make a completely different EMP tower. the code wouldn't rotate it because it wouldn't understand how to rotate it. So in the case if I was to do it right now, all I would have to do is go, okay, I want this piece, this piece, this piece, and I'll call all the other pieces connect to it. I want those to rotate as independent piece. And what I'll do is I'll render the bottom first, then I'll call a rotate call, and then I'll render the top. And that's how it actually works. So when you actually power it up, and let's actually power this up just for an example. Put this down here. These are actual Edition code generators, if anybody wants to know. And for those who want to ask why I've got it in my workspace, I was testing buckets like literally months ago, and with it, and I never took it out of the workspace. So this should work, and you see it'll actually rotate. Of course, that's a counter rotation on the bottom and a different rotation on the top, and I don't know why there's not a connecting piece down the middle. I think it was there originally and somebody removed it. I might add it back. I don't know. We'll get to that eventually. We're probably going to end up actually updating all these models at some point. Keep them somewhat what they already look like, but clean them up a little bit, make them a little bit nicer. Like this one's kind of, you can tell that this one doesn't match any of the rest of them. And what we might do is we might take the same stylization choices that this one has, where there's a little bit more extra detail here, and start applying it to stuff like this. Like for example, like we have the tier 1 and the tier 2 screens are identical, and there really should be some difference between them. I may leave the tier 1 exactly how it is, maybe add a couple buttons to the bottom of it, just for aesthetics. And of course I really do want to add a connection between the bottom here to the base, because there's literally no connection and it aesthetically doesn't look exactly good. And whoever made the original models, when you actually open up the original model files, let's actually pop to the main screen and just show this. So if we pop over to the Google Drive, I can show what the original models actually looked like and actually talk about what I think was supposed to be done with them. Although, to be honest, I don't have any of the original designs, and I never did really talk to the original model very much, so I don't know what the inspiration or theme was meant to be for a lot of this stuff. So go models, ICBM Classic, and of course the 112 update. Actually, I think I need to go up one folder. None of this was scripted, so I'm actually going to probably take a second to find what I'm looking for. Ah yeah, it's archive. If we pop in the archive, we'll find a lot of the older models. And when I mean older models, we have like tons of older models. Like here's a battery, for example. I think this might be the resin induction battery. Yeah, this is the resin induction battery. So we may actually update this at one point, because I think I have permission to use the battery for resin induction. I don't have permission to update resin induction, of course, but I do have permission to use some of the models. So let's go through, and here's the 164 ICBM models. And if we go to machines, we will actually find a couple different launchers. I think I've already showed these off, at least maybe on stream or in one of these videos already, but I wanted to talk about them a little bit more. So here is what the original tier 2 launcher is meant to look like. Is how it's when the artist set it up, this is what it was meant to be set up like. So you would have had the back face here, the support frame would of course still been on the other side, but this would have been how it would have been rotated. And I can't tell what exactly was why it doesn't look this way in an actual game. So if you go in game, we actually look at it, you can clearly tell that some of these pieces were rotated, but then when you open up the Techni model, and this is the original one, of course the one we're actually using in game is not the original. And of course you got this offset to one side. I think this was meant to be a completed block that would have taken up a 3x3, and you wouldn't have put any individual pieces anywhere. And my assumption is at some point Cal Clobby decided, hey, let's make separate blocks for everything. And from a technical design point, this actually does make sense. Is that this is a little harder to code than it really looks. So you look at this and you're like, wait, would you just place this in the world and it would just function? But no, you would have to build multi-blocks for this. This takes up a 3x3, and you'd have actual pretty complicated collision boxes. For these guys, when these actually were, if we actually get the multi-block working for it, there will literally be a 3-block tall piece here, a 3-block tall piece here, there'll be a 3-block tall piece back here, there will be a 1 block here and a 1 block here, and that's how we do the collision boxes. They're not fancy, they're not meant to be really complex, but there's not a lot of special handling for the collision boxes. With something like this, you would actually probably have to think about your collision boxes, because right here you don't really have any blocks, so why collide something there? Because then you would want a player to be able to walk around the outside edge. And if he hits like an invisible wall he can't walk through, you're probably going to get frustrated. With the tower, at least, we know we can probably put a full block there, and a player would go, it's kind of annoying, but he'll get used to it. Same thing with putting maybe a full block right here and everything else. So what I'm thinking, Cal Clobby decided it'd just be too hard to do it that way. Or maybe he had a different vision in mind. He was like, you know what, I want to build it this way. I want to be able to switch out the launcher, switch out the screens, switch out the frames, and switch out the base, which is kind of, it's a cool concept. Because then that what means is if you want to come through here later and add a tier 4 or 5, or maybe you want to add different launcher types of screen, maybe you want to add a computer craft version, which is actually probably how we're going to do computer craft in the future, is we're actually going to make a special screen just for computer craft handling, just so I don't have to apply all the computer craft interfaces to all this stuff and then wonder why the code breaks. So here's the tier 2 one, and then we have the tier 3. We don't have a tier 1, so I'm assuming the tier 1, it looks exactly how it's meant to look. But here's for the tier 3. So tier 3 looks completely different. So I found this original model, and I'm looking at it like, wait, this doesn't look anything like it. Again, it kind of makes sense. Like if you were going to build your all your other launchers with the same style, and then your tier 3 was completely different, it would throw players off, and it would throw the design off. It would also mean you'd have to have a lot more code. So that means you couldn't take the code from the tier 1 to the tier 2 and the tier 3 and reuse it. You would have to have special code for each tiered version, and that's a lot of extra work. And of course, when Cal Claude originally made this back in 2011, 2012, none of us knew how to code, so extra work meant it wasn't going to happen. But this does look really nice. I'm actually thinking about taking these versions of the model and bringing them in the game at some point in the future, because they look good. Although, of course, I'm definitely going to have to bring this in the Blender and spend a lot of time cleaning this up, because you can see the Z fighting down here where the pipes are going into that, or wires, or whatever they are. So that would need to be cleaned up, of course, and I don't know why they're actually going in there, because... actually, I think I know why. There's a length issue. So Technic, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't have a lot of fine-tune controls on the length of parts, even though Minecraft can actually understand the different length values. Of course, there's a lot of Z fighting over here and everything else. But yeah, you can see that, and I'm assuming the missile would have sat either in the tube or right next to it. I have no clue. There's definitely a lot of missing documentation here. But, of course, we got to show that off. So yeah. So we're definitely going to probably come through and redo a lot of these models and clean them up. I'm going to make sure they do at least stay somewhat similar to how they were. Although it doesn't matter too much, as this mod has been pretty much considered dead for so long that people have literally forgotten what it is, what it looks like, and how it played. I was literally talking to a few people in Discord the other day that just didn't know what the mod was. And for those who did know what the mod is, couldn't remember at all what it really contained. Kind of disappointing, but understandable. Outside of getting the launchers done, that's pretty much it. No recipes yet, still gotta do those. There's a lot of localization to be fixed. It just really comes down to the fact I changed the names at the last minute for the registries. So by the way, if you transfer a 1.7 world to 1.12, which I don't even know is possible, a lot of your tiles are going to be missing because the registry names are different. I do plan to add some code to backport that, and then when I backport ICBM Classic all the way to like probably 1.9, you might be able to translate a world. I don't know. The likelihood is not there. There's actually some tools you probably could use to fix that, but it's not going to happen probably. Anyways, I got to go take care of my dog here, and I got a lot of homework to do later today, so probably won't be back with a video anytime soon, but when I get stuff done, I'll come back with a video when I get a chance.